Howdy, howdy, Chris here, and welcome back to another episode of Garage Noise. Today I'm going to share with you how you can replace and repaint your front bumper cover at home. We've got a lot of information in this video, so let's dig in and get started. The damage on this Honda Civic's front bumper is really not that bad, but on each end of the bumper it has some tabs, and those tabs lock into a bracket that's located on the fender. Those tabs are damaged, so for this purpose we're going to replace this front bumper cover. Now your bumper might just have some scratches or might have a dent or something of that nature, and it may be able to be repaired. So if that's the case, check out the video link at the end, and that'll show you exactly how to repair your bumper. The first thing I'm going to do is remove this front bumper cover. Now each bumper cover is fastened just a little bit differently depending on the make and model. So do a little bit of research and you can determine how to remove your bumper cover. When purchasing a bumper, you have a few different options. You can get a new one, a used one, or an aftermarket. Now, we have chosen an aftermarket. This bumper cover came pre-primed, and I would recommend, if you're purchasing a bumper, to get one that is pre-primed. If you buy a raw bumper cover, there's a lot of additional preparation that needs to go in to getting the paint to adhere properly. To promote proper adhesion of paint, we need to sand this bumper and get it prepped out. So what I like to do is I use this foam pad here. This is a 600 grit foam pad, and I use that for all those little tight contours that are hard to reach. This will get those sanded properly so my paint will adhere and it won't peel off later down the road. A gray scuff pad like this is also a good idea to have on hand to get in those tight pockets of that bumper cover. You don't need any special tools to sand this bumper cover. You can prepare it all by hand. Now we are going to use the orbital sander with some 600 grit sandpaper on it. I am using an interface pad. This is a foam pad that's soft and it's going to move with the contours of the bumper. Let's talk about some of the materials and tools you need to paint your bumper cover. You are going to need paint and you are going to need clear coat. The paint you can get mixed up to the coat on your vehicle in an aerosol can. The clear coat you can get in an aerosol can as well. You want a 2K urethane clear coat, something that's catalyzed and hardens over the surface. If you have a compressor and a paint gun, better yet, you're going to get a better job. Now, if you're using a small compressor, you're going to want to use a smaller paint gun, like a touch-up paint gun. Those work really well and will do a phenomenal job on this bumper cover. Now I'm going to clean this bumper cover. I'm using a water-based cleaner. This is just a glass cleaner. It doesn't have any additives in it though, so I can use it just to clean off all the dust and remove those contaminants. And then we're going to go over it with some wax and grease remover. Now, wax and grease remover is an automotive cleaner designed to remove any contaminants, wax, oils, anything that's left on the bumper that can affect your paint job and react to your clear coat. I am spraying in an open garage, so I've wet the floor to keep the dust down. You also want to make sure you have good ventilation. Right before we start applying any paint or any adhesion promoter, we're going to tack cloth this off. This is a tacky cloth that's going to remove any lint or dust that's landed on this bumper. Whenever I'm painting a bumper cover, I like to use adhesion promoter before I apply any paint. This is just added insurance to keep that paint from peeling later on down the road. I'm using a product called Bulldog. It's a little bit more expensive. There's a lot of different adhesion promoters, and you can pick up one at your local auto parts store or your paint supplier. I'll leave a link to a reasonably priced adhesion promoter down in the description below, and you can always check out my storefront where you can find all the tools and products I recommend and use. So now we're going to let this adhesion promoter flash off, start to dry for about 5 to 10 minutes. Once it's cured, we're going to go ahead and apply our sealer. Do you have to apply a sealer if you're doing this at home? And the answer in this situation, the bumper was pre-primed, we added adhesion promoter. The answer is no. You definitely do not have to use a sealer if you're doing this repair at home. And in fact, I probably would recommend that you don't. The reason for that is because it's an added step that could trap dirt or something of that nature in your paint. There also can be sometimes reactions when you're using sealer over primer from an aftermarket supplier. So for that purpose, you may not want to use a sealer, but if you feel comfortable with it, it is a good idea because it helps with the flexibility of the bumper, keeping it from cracking and that type of thing. It also covers any minor scratches, and depending on the color that you're using, it could help with your coverage of your paint. You want to apply your sealer just like paint. You want it to be smooth. Now, the first coat of sealer, I would recommend you put a dust coat on. This is so it just creates a good base for a second medium coat. And then we'll put a third coat on and it'll be ready to go. So I have my gun set up where the fan pattern is wide open. The fan controls how large that fan is. You can narrow it down to get into small spaces. I have mine wide open. When you're spraying sealer or paint, you want to move in a consistent speed across that panel. You want to overlap your passes 70%. The air pressure you use for sealer and paint depends on the gun that you're using. Typically, I like to run my guns at around 15 to 20 psi for paint and sealer. As far as the volume, I would recommend about 2.5 turns out. If you have less air pressure, then you want less volume coming out. When you're done watching this video, if you have any questions about how to spray, paint, or any questions in general, just leave them in the comments below. I'll be happy to answer those questions. How many coats of paint do you need to get good coverage? It just depends on the color. Now, typically, I'm going to tell you it's about 3 to 4. It depends on the color and actually the paint brand. Some paint brands are more transparent than others. Now, this Nason usually is about 3 coats. I always like to put an extra coat on just to make sure everything's covered. And the other thing you want to make sure of is that you get around all the edges of your bumper cover, especially where it's near the fender and the tire. That area tends to get missed. So make sure you get all those covered and then check it with a light after you're done before you start spraying your clear coat. In between coats of paint, you want to wait 10 minutes for it to flash off before you put your next coat on. Now, I waited a little bit longer, let it cure, and then I went over it with a tack rag. Now, you want to make sure it's completely cure before you tack rag, because that could damage the paint you've already put on there. So I went ahead, let it dry, tack ragged it off. That's going to remove any contaminants. It also gives me an opportunity to look at the bumper cover, see if there's any dirt or anything I need to, lightly sand off. You can sand any of those imperfections off with a fine sandpaper like a 2000 grit. If you sand any of those imperfections off, you will need to put another coat of paint on it. I hope you're getting something out of this video, and if you are, consider subscribing to the channel, liking this video, and clicking the bell. And if you want to help support the channel, you can check out the links down in the description below. Now, we're about ready to clear coat this bumper cover, and I've got a great recommendation for a clear coat to use at home. The clear coat we're using today is the Transtar Flash Clear Coat. And the reason why this is so perfect for someone doing a repair at home is because it dries in 30 minutes. This clear is just amazing for the guy or girl doing their repair at home, replacing their bumper. You can paint it after 30 minutes or 40 minutes. You can reinstall that bumper and be ready to go. This clear is dust-free after 10 minutes, fingerprint-free after 15, and then cured after 30, so you can buff it right after that. But the other thing I like is there's only a 10-minute window for dust to land in your clear coat, which just makes it perfect for somebody doing the repair at home. If you never sprayed clear before, this is great as well because you only have to put one double coat on, so there's no flash time. Basically, you're making one pass and then you make another pass right down that same line. That's a double coat of clear. That's what this calls for, what the technical data sheet calls for, and it turns out beautifully. I've used this clear in the past. I like it because I am not spraying in a booth, and this eliminates a lot of dust that might otherwise land in the paint. I don't have a link for this clear coat in the description. What I was told is that this brand, Select brand, is exclusively an O'Reilly's brand, so you can purchase this at your local O'Reilly's. And there is a lot of other speed clears that you could use. I think a speed clear is perfect for a DIYer. So do your research, check it out, and find the clear that's right for you. Okay, let's spray some clear, and I am using the 3M Performance gun to spray this clear. I'm using the 1.2 tip, and this is another great product for someone doing repairs at home. This spray gun here, it's very versatile. It's got a selection of different tips, so you can use it for primer, sealer, paint, clear coat. Now, I'm using the 1.2 tip. I like the results from that for clear coat. I've got my fan pattern wide open. I've got my volume turned to 2.5 to 3 turns out. I've got my air pressure set at 24 psi. This gun sprays with a little bit less air pressure. but it's a really good gun that atomizes really well, and it'll give you a really nice finish, and it's very versatile. So when you're making your passes on your clear coat, you want to be 4 to 5 inches away from the panel. You want to overlap 70%. You want to have a consistent speed and a consistent distance from the panel at all times. So even when you're going around the corner of a bumper, you want to keep that consistent distance. This will give you a nice uniform finish in your clear coat. Because this flash clear coat calls for 1 double coat of clear, I'm going a little bit slower, and I'm going to double coat each pass. That is the idea, and then we'll be done. So it makes it a lot easier to spray clear coat, especially if you've never done it before. You just coat it 1 double coat and you're done. Let's finish laying down this clear and take a look at the finished product. And there it is, the finished product. And after a light wet sand and buff, this bumper will be ready to go. I appreciate each and every one of you watching. And if you want to support the channel, hit the like button and comment down below. We'll see you next time on Garage Noise.